Hey there, friends. Welcome to a live stream. I waited a little bit to start this live stream, and it's a pretty informal live stream. I'm actually in my living room, so you're going to hear a bit of an echo because I wanted to get as much information as I could because it was really sketchy information coming in about this UNLV, University of Las Vegas, quote, mass shooting that took place, or they are calling it it was an active shooter is what they were calling it. Let me pull up. Let's see. Let's see what they're talking about here, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. Let's see. Let me grab this. And I guess where is our mute on that? Apparently that is muted.
And they entered into this very uneasy alliance with him where a lot of them felt it was transactional. We'll give him our votes. He gives us some policies. We call it a day.
Stand by. I want to find, there was a video report that I had a second ago, one of the latest updates, and I wanted to summon that up. Let me find that real quick. Give me 1 second. Apparently they've stuck something else in there. By the way, this is kind of odd timing, and one of you guys already mentioned that. The Senate introduced a gun control bill or an anti-gun bill today. Anti-constitutional bill, and it got struck down, and mere minutes later there is a active shooter in Las Vegas. So again, coincidences, right? I apologize, but the video that I had earlier is no longer available. Let me refresh this and get something. Let's see what USA Today has to say about it. I like to pull from these liberal organizations and look at what they have to say first, because usually you're going to get an definitely exaggerated. Good Lord, all the pop-ups. Do you guys have as much trouble trying to view stuff on the freaking internet now because of all the doggone pop-ups? Just give me the story that I'm looking for. My gosh, I can't even find a freaking website that I can get the freaking story from because everything else wants to pop up and give me crap. I do know that the person is dead. Let me tell you this while I'm going through here. The quote shooter is deceased. They keep saying multiple victims. I, for one, out of all these pop-ups and other things that I've seen, still don't have what they're classifying as numerous victims. I still don't know what that number is. Here's your latest update. Shooting with multiple victims reported. Still don't know what that number is. I know the left is waiting with bated breath on that number and the type of gun used. That's what they want to know. So if it's not listed here, that means we don't know, because they will not hide that. Now, what they're likely to hide is the identity of the shooter. The fact that we don't know who the shooter is yet and don't know the identity or anything else about the shooter leads me to believe that this is going to be one of the Biden voters that they are trying to hide. That's usually the way it is. If they say who it is right away, you know what they're talking about. Suspect in University of Nevada shooting is dead. Let me just read that one real quick. Not much to say there. Suspect in a shooting on the campus of University of Nevada, Las Vegas, has been located and is deceased. Students describe sheltering in place. I don't really care about that. Their run, hide, fight thing is contained. So they did have him contained in one of the buildings. The Beam Hall, BEAM Hall, is where they looks like they had him cornered, or at least where he escaped to. Warrants of more shots reported at Student Union building. Of course, the White House is monitoring it. As you can see, very little information, nothing really reliable other than we have a dead shooter. Look, BBC probably has better information. I can tell you they have fewer pop-ups, that's for sure. Okay, police in Las Vegas are responding to an active shooter at the Las Vegas campus. Multiple victims. Again, no word of how many victims. Yep, same thing, nothing. Yep, still no specifics. I was waiting to try to put this out because I hoped that we would have information. The longer we go without knowing what's happened here, the more I'm going to start figuring it out for myself, if you know what I mean. This is a live coverage. Let's see what this has to say here. This is ABC News. All right, with the pop-ups. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was looking for a new hat and t-shirt.
Way we could be helpful. I know that campus very well. My husband taught there longer than I did. And the Wright Hall, where the political science department was, is right next to Beam Hall. Had the violence spread and involved the student union, a lot of students and faculty and staff would have been there for the lunch hour. It's right at the head of the quad where a lot of people gather. So it could have just been devastating.
And we go through this too many times, obviously. As a member of Congress, you've been involved in these debates for years. And I understand that you have introduced legislation, gun safety, gun regulation, to try to get some kind of a handle on these shootings from that perspective. We don't know what happened here, but we do know that there have been more than 600
We're going to speculate.
Multiple shootings, multiple victim shootings in the country so far this year, and that's a record. And Las Vegas, of course, has a painful history with the Mandalay Bay shooting. This is something you've been working on, and I can't imagine what you feel when, once again, your hometown, your home campus is involved.
Well, that's right. And the Mandalay Bay shooting that we just had the anniversary of a couple of months ago was also in my district. And that's the worst shooting in modern American history, with 58 people killed. So Metro is very well trained to deal with this sort of situation.
Did you tell those students to stay in place during this as they...
That doesn't make them well trained.
I'm sorry. I wanted to say there is a gun violence prevention caucus. I'm a member of it, and we've sponsored a number of bills to get weapons of war off our streets, and we just cannot get the other side to move these forward.
And Congressman, for those of us who know UNLV best, for its sporting glory, tell us a little bit about that campus community and how that community will be responding to this incident, this tragedy.
Well, it's grown considerably since I first came there in 1977. It is, but it's still a small campus in terms of being close knit. It's an urban campus, so most of the students there are from the local community. So there's a tight connection between town and gown. It's located in the heart of the city, so it's on a small space for many campuses. It's not spread out. It could be fairly easily contained. There's a lot of school spirit there, and there will be a lot of concern for people all around the state for UNLV. Go Rebels. That's known pretty well now nationally with our sports team. So I think you'll find a lot of sympathy, a lot of concern, and a lot of reaching out to try to be helpful. It's just devastating.
And the student body is drawn primarily from Nevada and the western states, or beyond?
Well, it's primarily an urban campus. It's also a designated minority serving campus. Some of the fields like the hotel draws students internationally, but by and large, most people commute from the valley to the campus.
And Congressman, this is the question that always comes. Well, we hope that this is an incident where no one was killed. We have no confirmed fatalities. We do have injuries at this point. But what kind of steps do you believe can be taken to reduce this plague that really America suffers more than any other country that's not at war in the world?
Well, that's right. We need to take some legislative matters at dealing with gun violence, whether it's getting rid of automatic weapons like machine guns or rapidly firing ammunition clips, bump stocks. I have that bill. That's what was used at Mandalay Bay to turn a regular gun into a machine gun. harder background checks. Those are the kinds of things that need to be done. What's happening is because Congress seems to not be able to take action because the Republicans won't vote for or bring these bills up, is that some state by state legislatures are doing just that, including in Nevada. But that gives you a patchwork of policy that really can't address this as the nationwide health issue that it is.
And Congressman, we've been watching our affiliate coverage, and as we saw the police response, a massive police response to the UNLV campus. Students coming out, obviously the officers are still there, going through, making sure that that campus is safe. And we also saw the response of the university tweeting out, "Run, hide, fight," and the police providing real-time information on what they believe the location of the shooter was. The response here, initial response to what we know about the situation, about this incident at this point, was very robust. The silver lining, if there is such a thing, is that the country has gotten good at responding to this. Certainly, it looks like the Las Vegas Police Department and the university itself, was on the ball here.
Well, you hate to think it's because you've had a lot of practice, but indeed that previous shooting on October 1 was like a war zone. Police, the first responders, ordinary citizens rescuing people, hospital emergency rooms that look like MASH units. So we did learn a lot from that experience. And the campus cops were there ready.
Well, they have their panic out of the
one
way.
of the advantages of having so much social media, students are always on their phones, is that the university was able to get the word out very quickly to that student population that something was happening and this is what they needed to do. And that was very effective.
And the threat environment here, Congressman, with wars overseas, with the country, entering an election year where the country's polarized, and polls show that anger about these issues is very, very high. It's a high threat environment in this country, from Las Vegas to Washington, D.C., right across the country.
Well, it certainly is. I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and we have had briefings ahead of the FBI has recently said we have to be on high alert because of all these things.
But
and in Nevada, you've seen that all of the campuses are locked down now following this incident at UNLV, just in case it's something that encourages other actions like this, or it's a more coordinated multiple incident that was planned to take place.
All campuses are locked down.
And as a community leader in Las Vegas for all these years, and as a member of the United States Congress, what can you do in the days following an incident like this, the hours and the days following? What's your role here, do you think?
Well, I think we keep talking about the need for gun violence prevention legislation. I'll work with some of the organizations that are there to Moms Demand Action, trying to keep this at the top of the front page, keep this in the news so that we don't just respond to it with thoughts and prayers. We need to respond to it with action.
Emotion, you mean?
Well, Congresswoman Dina Titus of Las Vegas, who taught at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas for more than 30 years. We thank you for being with us.
She's an indoctrinator.
Hope we can stay in touch with you. Thank you very much, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
Well, as we say, this is an incident we are expecting with multiple victims, we've been told. We are expecting a news conference within the next several minutes. But let's go to ABC News to Alex Stone in Los Angeles. Alex, what can you tell us at this point about this incident, what we know so far?
Terry, any moment now, we expect to hear from police. They were going to do a briefing a few moments ago. It keeps getting delayed. So we think in the next couple of minutes. I was just talking to a source who says even within law enforcement, they only still know of multiple people who have been injured, that exact numbers are not clear on this. We know that the suspect is dead. We don't know if the person killed themselves or if they were killed by law enforcement going in. I-15 around Las Vegas is now closed as a way to prevent people from going into this area. As you heard the Congresswoman saying there, UNLV is not that far away from the Las Vegas Strip and from Harry Reid International Airport. It's all right there. This will prevent people from being able to get into the area. Harry Reid International Airport has a ground stop right now, Aircraft not allowed to leave for Las Vegas. We don't believe they're departing out of Las Vegas either at this point because the airport is so close to
Wow,
what's
that's
unfolding.
huge.
We
Shut the
know that there
airport
were
down.
police helicopters over the
Something
area.
doesn't
One of the
sound right.
reasons
They
why
shut
they did
the
the ground
airport down
stop,
and a lot of other
but
colleges.
also there were concerns potentially, like after 2017 and the mass shooting then, that people would try to run into the airport area to try to get away from the threat. So they have shut down the airport arrivals and departures for how long, we don't know
That
yet,
sounds
how long
stupid.
that's going to go on. But we expect to hear from police any moment.
And the police are continue this investigation. I understand that the University of Nevada, Las Vegas has urged its students to remain sheltered in place because of this active investigation. Are they concerned about another shooter, about booby traps or other weapons left behind by the shooter that they have confirmed is deceased?
All of the above. And that is always a concern on these incidents, whether it be, all of these that we've covered in the years, Columbine, Las Vegas, Aurora, Colorado, all of them, that there is always that concern of another shooter. Typically, there are reports that come in of another shooter, and they search for quite a while. And except for some, like Columbine, normally there is not a second shooter. Quite often, I remember in Las
Maybe
Vegas,
we should go ahead and lock the
there were
country
reports
down. How
of
about that?
shooters all over the place in 2017 because a lot of undercover or non-uniformed police went running in and they were seen with guns. And as they went running in, people called 911 thinking that was another shooter. So there can always be confusion there. And in that case, it was one gunman. In this case, it appears that there was probably only one. But you see that stature right there from police trying to move students out of the area who are not sheltering in place, that they're still tense. It's calmed down a bit, but this is still very active as it's unfolding right now. And students are being told, shelter in place, reading from the tweet from UNLV. Police are evacuating one building at a time. This remains an active investigation, so they are going building by building, trying to clear it and saying, okay, you are good. They then escort them out and get them out. Otherwise, they're being told, remain in your classroom or in your dorm or wherever you are in the student union where we believe some of this was going on, and then they will get them out of there one by one.
Alex Stone, thanks. Let's bring in ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Brad Garrett. Brad, Alex says it's tense, obviously. There's been a shooting, multiple victims. The shooter is deceased. What are the police doing now, to bring that down and to make sure they have a handle on whatever it is they're dealing with?
So one of the keys, obviously, Terry, is that they've brought in, I assume, people to deal with the victims. I'm not talking about the physical injury, but all of these students that were either in direct or indirect proximity to the
Here we
shooting
go. We need counsel
to deal with them, to let them sort of talk through what they just experienced. Because typically what that does is internally it lowers, in effect, their blood pressure, their anxiety, etc. So hopefully some version of that is going on. But the reality is, Terry, it's just going to take a few hours before these kids feel like they're even safe again, despite the fact that it appears to be one shooter. The shooter's deceased. No indication of anybody else out there to harm them. It's the fear factor, because it's such a vulnerable thing to be involved in one of these shootings, even if you're directly there or if you're a classroom away or a block away.
I have anxiety
you hear it,
from
you see people
Louisiana.
running.
I wonder if I could get it
It's going to add to your anxiety. So that's why these things tend to live in people for years after they occur. So to your question about can we lower it
If
or
they
can
carry
they
the gun,
lower
that
it? Now,
anxiety would go away.
yes,
You know that, right?
but that's going to be very measured and it's going to take a while.
And Brad, we just heard Alex remind us what we know intuitively. These are usually lone wolf types, but it has happened where there have been other shooters. Obviously, Columbine, the most famous, but others as well. But in this instance, the police say the shooter is deceased, but still want people to shelter in place as they go through that. What is the likelihood of that? What are they looking for? I guess other reports of a man with a gun, right?
Well, correct. But also, you just have to be thorough. For example, you have 2 shooting locations, according to the police. Are there people in rooms injured that they haven't gotten to, that crawled ran whatever they did to go to a particular location. So you want to do a thorough search of both locations where these shootings occurred to make sure you've found all the victims. Obviously, you would look for other potential suspects, but I think in this case,
Garcia, Garcia.
Let's go to
Wanted
Las
to give you
Vegas
just
Police
a
Department
very
officials
short
briefing on this
briefing
shooting right
on
now.
where we are at this
Finally.
point. Before I do that, I want to introduce Sheriff McMahill, who you see to my left, and the fire chief, Chief Steinbach. So we received a call of an active shooter event at 11:45 this morning. Officers immediately responded, engaged the suspect. The suspect at this point is deceased. We do not have information on any potential victims at this point. What I can tell you as well is that the entire Nevada system of higher education in Southern Nevada, campuses are all closed out of an abundance of caution. There is no threat to any other campus, but we are doing this out of
But they
an abundance
closed them
of
all.
caution. With that, I will turn it over to the sheriff.
Weird. That's weird.
I'm Kevin McMahill. I'm the sheriff of the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, and I want to say to the community, there's no further threat. I will tell you that this combined police, state, local, and federal law enforcement, along with the fire department, worked very well. As the chief told you, we do have one suspect down. Of course, we have no idea on the motive. There are a number of victims that have been transported to area hospitals. So I don't want to give you false information and tell you how many victims that we have, but we will be providing that update very, very shortly. I want to assure the community there's no further threat. We are continuing the investigation here. This is still a very active and dynamic scene. So if you can avoid the area, we would appreciate it. And we'll be providing additional updates in the very near future. Thank you.
There are victims.
So
Yes,
nothing.
there are victims.
So nothing. Thank you for not telling us anything.
Yes, on behalf of the entire first responder community, though, of course, our hearts go out to any of the families that are affected by this. Our update right now is that we do have a reunification center that is opened up at the convention center. That's at the North Hall. It will take time to transport students over to that area, but if you can't get a hold of your loved ones right now, your kids, or somebody that you're concerned with, then that would be the place to go and to try to go ahead and do that reunification. We will have people there to assist you. We also have a phone number. It is being staffed. It's 702-455-AIDE. And there'll be a website opened up, and it's facofsouthernnevada.com. Okay, and so that is our current information that we have for victim services, and that will change also as or be updated as necessary. But we will have those resources there. Understand when you call that number or you check the website, the information right now will still be limited, and there won't be any specific information as far as individuals that have been injured or deceased.
Sheriff, what's happening on the campus now? I see people leaving.
So as you can imagine, the campus is a very large area to cover. Much like we had in the aftermath of 1 October, there's a lot of additional calls coming in that students hunkered down. They're afraid. They're scared. Our officers are going unit by unit, building by
They
building.
wouldn't be if they
with
carried guns.
The university police and the rest of the police officers, firefighters, EMS, and making sure that we don't have
That's
any
exactly
additional
right,
victims
pending
and/or
ballistics. What a
subjects.
coincidence,
So
right?
we'll be back with you in the very near future to provide an update. Thank you.
Any info on the suspect?
Sheriff, I have an update as well.
All right, one more update here.
On that website, that's going to be facofsouthernnevada.org. I believe I said .com. That is .org.
All right, we just got the very latest information from.
So we just got the latest information.
All right, we got latest information from Sheriff McMahill, just providing us an update. We're going to step away here.
Okay, so there you heard it from Sheriff Kevin McMahill in Las Vegas, confirming that there is no further threat. There had been, as often happens in these situations, concerns, even reports of other gunmen, of other incidents. The sheriff then confirming for the people of Las Vegas that there is no further threat to the community, that the suspect is down. One suspect is down. And
I would almost recommend
no information at this
Googling
point on motive,
the word
obviously,
shooting later
and that
on
they
tonight.
don't have an update at
I
this
bet
point
there's a
on
lot of this that
victims,
happened
because
today.
victims were transported, trying to get a handle on the total number of victims and don't want to give out false
Something just
information. They
stinks
say they
right
will
now.
have that information shortly. Let's bring in Alex Stone.
No
on what
information.
we heard
You
from
realize
Sheriff
they didn't give
McMahill
any information?
and his colleagues
Nothing.
on the situation
Multiple
there.
victims,
And
suspect
Alex,
dead.
I was
That's
struck by
it.
the notion that they're setting up a reunification center for people who are trying to get a hold of loved ones and
They're probably
obviously
busy trying to
desperately
build them a
concerned
Facebook
given
page
what
right now.
happened on the campus there.
Know that they set up these centers and then family members come and they're able to hug and give them a ride because these students probably are not allowed to get their cars out of the parking lot right now, and they've got to get somebody to come pick them up and get them out of there. What really stood out to me in all of that was everything was in the past tense as he was describing what is going on right now, that it was no longer active, that it was no longer in the present tense of happening at this point. So that they do believe that this is over. But the one suspect down, and again, he could not give numbers on that. And we understand from law enforcement sources, they don't know yet, that people were sent to hospitals and all over the place. They don't know how many were injured, how many may have been killed. At this point, that's unclear.
All right, Alex, thank you very much. We once again expect information on victims.
Thank you, Alex, for
shortly,
filling
is
the
what
airtime since we have
told us.
nothing
Let's
to
go
report.
to the Democratic congressman who represents Las Vegas, Dina Titus, and she was with us earlier. Congressman, thank you for being with us again. Your office has said it is in constant communication with law enforcement to find ways to assist. So, and you've just heard Sheriff McMahill say that that the community at this point, there's no further threat to the community. That has to be good news given the chaos of a situation like this and some reports that there may have been some other threat to the community.
Well, that's absolutely right, because UNLV is an urban campus. It's located close to the Strip, close to the airport. There are small businesses, apartments, houses all around. So knowing that they are safe because the campus is locked down and the shooter has been stopped will make people feel a lot more secure as they see this on the news.
That wouldn't make me feel secure.
Absolutely. Congressman Dina Titus, thank you very much for being with us today, and good luck in the days ahead as you help your community get through this. Thanks very much. Let's bring in Elizabeth Newman, who's former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, ABC News consultant, with us on situations like this. Elizabeth, I want to ask you a question I had earlier.
Channel, but you guys don't have to
we
do
don't
that,
know
but it's much
who
appreciated.
the shooter is deceased, or motive, as the sheriff just told us, but it is a threat environment in this country, given wars overseas, the polarization, anger in this country, the general sense that things have just become discombobulated, screws loose all over the place, it seems, in our country. How do you read the threat environment surrounding incidents like this one in Las Vegas today?
It feels like we're on sitting in a tinderbox, Terry. It is very volatile. And what we know about people that commit mass attacks is that usually there's some sort of significant stressor that has occurred in their life. And anytime you create an environment societally that increases that stress, it allows the other stress, the personal stress, to have, it could be a little bit lower than perhaps in other circumstances. So when you combine the societal challenges, the grievances, the frustrations that we're having in our politics or in global affairs with anything that an individual might be having personally occurring in their life, perhaps a lost job, loss of a loved one, those are all very common things that we see in people that commit mass attacks. It unfortunately just allows that trigger to occur at perhaps a lower threshold. So it is important to say we don't know anything about the shooter yet.
I'm so glad I don't live in the East or West
But as a security professional, we are very concerned about the environment we've been in for the last few years, and we expect that threat environment will remain heightened and likely to increase over the next year, especially going into the next presidential election cycle.
Absolutely. And Elizabeth, I want to ask about the way that all of those forces you just described are accelerated in us by the algorithms of social media that we're all on. Those algorithms designed to get engagement, to keep us stuck on those screens. And the best way to do it is to make people angry, have negative feelings. That negative engagement is the one.
This guy is
where
with the
people tend to
media.
stick.
He's describing the media.
How much are our officials, our researchers concerned that our addiction to these platforms is part of the reason we're getting so many of these crazy incidents?
It's a great point, Terry. We know before 2015, most people radicalized to violence through in-person connections and conversations with people who might have exposed them to conspiracy theories or ideologies or the idea of committing some sort of act of violence. After 2015, it is a drastic shift to the point where almost all people that we are able to track and identify because they've committed an attack, people that have committed attacks were radicalized online. Now, that doesn't mean just because you're online or you spend time online that you're going to radicalize. There's a whole host of other factors that go on that create the right mix that might move somebody to that pathway of violence. But the fact that now your ability to access the exposure to the radicalizing content is so much easier, and it just falls on your lap sometimes. We have done studies that show that people can go online for seeking very benign things and then end up being offered a YouTube channel or a tweet that you click that leads you to a website that has very disturbing content, and then you fall down a rabbit hole believing a conspiracy theory or believing that some grievance or ideology might be true, that then leads you to believe that hostile action is necessary, which is the concern that we have. It's not that we want to police thought and content, but there is certain content out there that does have a propensity to lead certain people down that pathway to violence. It is so prevalent right now, and very concerning that most of us spend inordinate amount of time online and are frequently exposed to extremist ideologies.
Elizabeth Newman, thank you for that. Let's go back to
what a coup.
Our ABC News contributor, former FBI agent Brad
Garrett, at Thanksgiving,
who is with us often in these incidents. And Brad, let me first go to what Sheriff McMahill said. No further threat to the community. That is a confirmation from the sheriff, from the police department, that they believe this incident is over. And that's got to come, obviously, as good news to the people of Las Vegas. And so what comes next now?
So pulling together
this is an
what
excellent
information
point
they
right
can
here.
on the shooter, which we've now had, perhaps they've had maybe 2 hours. Have they done a search? Have they talked to people he lives with, if that's relevant? What is his online profile? We just don't know anything about him at this point. If he's younger, he probably has a fairly robust online profile. If he's older, he may or may not.
So this dude is literally speculating right now.
Where did they come from?
About the shooter.
Did he get them legally?
If he's younger,
typically,
if he's older.
These types of shooters get their weapons legally. They buy them. If they're younger, sometimes they take them from home. But by and large, if they're like of age, they can buy weapons. They buy them legally.
And that's what we've seen quite a bit. And Brad, if I could just ask you, kind of following up on what Elizabeth was talking about, this accelerant quality that social media has for all of our engagement, and for the troubled mind, for the broken person inside, can take them down a path to violence. How concerned do you think people should be about the impact of these algorithms that do want to engage us in the most negative ways possible, mostly because that's why that'll get us fighting. It'll get our fight and flight instincts going. And so that'll keep us on their screen. How much of a concern do you think that should be in relation to the kinds of violence that today's incident in Las Vegas and so many others represent?
It's an unbelievable concern. Let's face it, Terry, if you are headed in a particular direction, you clearly can find a news stream, a social media stream, a particular group that has a stream to keep you talking about the same subject. I mean, we do it in other things other than radicalizing people or driving them to violence. We do it with politics, right? You go and you feed and you create a reality of what you're hearing that maybe supports your anger or rage, and it just keeps building. If you're a person that's
no
sort
doubt
of
in my
come
mind,
up
this
to
guy
a
was
line
never
where
spanked by his parents.
so many things have not worked in your
Time
life,
out, no
relationships,
doubt.
jobs, school, We'll have to see, for example, if this shooter is connected to the school in some form or fashion, present or past tense, or somebody at the school. But the point being, all of these things, where people go to get their information, to get their sort of relationship, because so many people, that is their relationship, is online, that they're gathering information, they're talking to people that are feeding them bad things, violent things. And it's really how they have relationships, that they actually feel better in those situations than talking to one of us one-on-one.
And that is a huge challenge, as you point out. Brad Garrett, thanks very much for being with us on that. As always, we want to take you back now to our affiliate station in Nevada, KTNV, for more breaking news coverage of what happened in Las Vegas today.
I talked to her. She's good. They're barricaded in where she's at.
Okay, and having your daughter here in an active shooter situation, what's kind of going through your mind right now?
I'm just glad she's okay.
Look it out, man.
And you said you were going to wait out here for her?
Oh, I'm not going anywhere.
Just a heartbreaking situation. You can see the shock and the heartbreak on every single person that we've talked to, is with their face, dealing with this active situation as it continues unfolding. And I know Joe Moeller is out live as well, and we're going to see what's happening outside of campus. Joe.
All right, Kelsey. Yeah, we were outside the UNLV campus on the east side at Maryland Parkway and University. This area closed to traffic as this investigation continues here on campus. Still a pretty active situation. We're seeing students leave the campus, but if you take a look down Maryland Parkway, still dozens and dozens of law enforcement vehicles. We just heard from the sheriff just a moment ago saying that the suspect is down. He came out here, walked out here, quickly gave us that update, and so the number of victims have been transported to local hospitals. But the investigation is continuing. Police still going through the campus, checking different rooms, different buildings here on campus. And we're hearing an intercom over the campus here explaining that people need to shelter in place until
Thank you, Mike.
Until they're told to do
Appreciate you,
different.
brother.
And we did speak to a student a short time ago, maybe 30 minutes ago, about being on campus, and the last update he got was almost 2 hours ago. And so that's still said to shelter in place. So they're still going into these classrooms, taking students out and leaving. Sheriff McMahill saying there is no threat to the community here at this time, which tells us that the only suspect that they know of, the suspect involved in the situation, is down, and basically what they're trying to do is make sure that there is nothing else going on here on campus. But you're taking a look down Maryland Parkway. Very busy road, obviously. This is a Wednesday afternoon. The traffic in the area is pretty heavy. You're urged to avoid the area. Maryland Parkway is closed. Roads around the campus are closed for this investigation. A helicopter is still overhead. We're seeing that just do circles around this campus, as we have since about 12:15, since we got out here 12:30 earlier today. Now, this investigation is not over. There's still a lot of unanswered questions, some questions that the students also had that we spoke with earlier, wanting to know who was this person, what happened on campus, and what's happening next. But we are going to get another update from Metro later on this evening at 5 o'clock. But of course, we'll be out here bringing you the very latest. And now we're going to send it over to Giovanni.
Right. Escondido near UNLV right now. There's still an active scene out here right now. There's still a lot of people out here waiting to get reunited with friends, waiting for their classmates. Let me just give you a live look at what it's looking like over here right now. As you can see, there's multiple different first responders, police units.
Yes,
out
been
here,
in ballistics.
during
I've actually been to the campus.
Police are calling an
You're
active
right, it's not
shooter
far from SHOT
situation.
Show.
We now know that police say
all
that
this
there's no
started,
longer a threat, but this has
we're
still
only a
shaken
month
up a lot of
away.
people out here
SHOT
right now.
Show, a month and a half.
I did speak with
I wonder how this affects
a
it.
visitor.
You know they're not
who
going
was
to
here
back
for
out.
an event who
They're
tells
going to
me
go through
that
with it like
he
the
was
NRA
out
did.
here for
I would
an
be
event,
willing to
and
bet
he,
that once we
was,
determine what kind of gun is
startled by
used,
what happened. He
I
says that
wonder
he was
if
locked
the
inside a room,
manufacturer will back out
in
of
the
SHOT Show
building that
like
was
Daniel
right
Defense
next to
did
where
at
that
the NRA
shooting
show after
happened.
Uvalde
He
took
says he's
place
heard
and the
multiple
NRA
shots,
show
he's
was
heard
in Houston.
screams, and
I wonder
he
how
says
this
that
is
he
going to
had some
impact
friends
SHOT Show.
inside of the
Curious.
building where that shooting broke out, and he says that he's hoping all of his friends have been accounted for, and hopefully they are okay and nobody got injured. He says that he's been trying to get a hold of them, but No answer so far, but here's another live look at the scene. So you can see there's multiple ambulances, fire trucks, police units, and there's, like I said, there's still a lot of people out here right now just waiting and looking at the situation, holding. Again, there's other people here who I've also spoken with who tell me that they just can't believe it. They're just you can't believe what happened out here right now. Now, as you can see, here's another live look at the situation, and of course we will continue to monitor the situation right here because everything is continuing to be a developed situation, and of course we are working to gather more details about what happened out here. But for now, send it back to you guys.
Thank you very much. We have on the phone once again former FBI Special Agent in Charge, Aaron Rouse of the FBI Las Vegas. Before we get to Aaron, I just want to read you an ex post from Attorney General Aaron Ford. This came in a little bit earlier today when there were just reports of the active shooter before all of the confirmation.
I think I've learned more reading the comments than I have watching
Attorney
any of this
General
news
Ford
feed.
says, I just said a prayer for our entire community. Join me in holding the entire campus, our community, and our state in your thoughts and prayers. Of course, a lot of concern of that nature. And former FBI Special Agent in Charge, Aaron Rouse, back on the phone with us. Aaron, what are we to make of the very definitive statement from our sheriff that there is no further threat, despite the fact that there's clearly a lot of investigation still to do? I'm not sure. We've got Aaron. Can you hear us, Aaron? Okay, we'll get back to Aaron as soon as we've got him back on the phone. We are going to once again share with you the ex post from UMC Hospital confirming that UMC has not received any patients from the UNLV shooting.
But there's multiple.
Their trauma center stands by ready to deliver any care that the community deserves during what they call one of our greatest times of need. Also confirming that UMC Hospital is fully open to all patients and visitors and is prepared to care for the victims of this tragic shooting. Anybody in the area who sees Metro officers staged outside of all UMC entrances, they're there to ensure the safest possible environment for patients, visitors, and staff. They are not there because there's any kind of a threat to the hospital. I'm being told now that we do have former Special Agent in Charge of FBI Las Vegas, Aaron Rouse, back on the phone.
Oh, I'm sure
and Aaron, I had been asking before, what do you make of the sheriff's definitive statement that there is no further threat, despite the fact that this is very early on and clearly there is still investigating to be done?
They clearly have information that this was a one-person event, and they feel confident in that information. It was a very definitive and declarative statement that could provide a measure of comfort to those people concerned about family members who may be in some of the lockdown facilities. But again, we also want to make sure that everyone is being cautious on how they approach the situations, that they are still allowing the law enforcement community the room to conduct their investigations and make sure that they are cooperating as fully as they possibly can to the law enforcement directions and the request for help. If you have information that is helpful for law enforcement to know, make sure that you're providing that as fully and as accurately as you possibly can.
And I want to read a tweet just sent out from Las Vegas Metro Police. It says, from Sheriff Kevin McMahill, no more threat to the community. The suspect is deceased. Right now, we know there are 3 victims, but unknown extent of the injuries, and that number could change, and they'll update you when we know more. And we know that they plan on having another press briefing sometime this afternoon around 5 p.m., but that's the latest. We've been unsure about how many victims there are. We've learned there are at least 3 victims, unknown extent of injuries. They've been sent to the hospital.
What we can, of course, tell you is that they have not been sent to UMC, but we do know that we've got Jae-Won Jung standing by at Sunrise so that if any victims arrive there, she'll be able to share with us what she is seeing and whether anybody is giving updates on the conditions of those victims. But that number 3, Kelsey, that is obviously the first number that we have heard in terms of those who were victimized in this active shooter situation. The conditions of those victims, once again, for our viewers, is unknown. But that number 3, the first time we're hearing how many people may have been affected by this shooter. We've heard a variety of different reports from our crews on the ground throughout the day about how many shots were fired. We had one student say she heard 4 shots. We had another student say he heard about 15 shots. We've been made aware that there were potentially 2 locations where shots were being fired in Beam Hall that originated in a bathroom, I believe, has been reported, as well as potentially shots fired in the student.
So from multiple to 3.
I'm Kana Whitworth, and we come on the air right now with some breaking news. A deadly shooting in Las Vegas, and just moments ago, authorities saying there is no longer a threat to the community, adding the suspect is dead. Law enforcement say that they responded to reports of an active shooter at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, just before noon. Now, police are saying there are multiple victims, and just recently here, Las Vegas Police Department saying there are 3 victims, but unknown extent of the injuries, adding that number could change, and they vow to keep us updated. Las Vegas authorities initially telling students, as scary as it sounds, to run, hide, and fight, and then to shelter in place. Many of these students reported hearing gunfire, multiple rounds, and then students were seen evacuating the buildings. They were led out by law enforcement at times. Many of them also had their hands up as a safety precaution. Also noting that the major highway in the area, I-15, now closed. There's also a ground stop at the airport. Now, I want you to keep in mind as you're watching that UNLV is an urban college campus, so it's right there in the middle of the city. It is not far from the Strip. Also, a reunification center has been created. Some frantic parents even showing up on the campus looking for their children, according to one student. And here's more of what one student on the campus had to say about the shooting.
This should be good.
We were evacuated out by police holding guns. We all walked out with our arms up. When we were walking out, we saw one of the windows had been shot through. So we got out. UNLV did a really good job giving us updates, telling us where the shooter was, getting us out quick. We know that there was at least one shooter in the business building on the 2nd floor.
That's something that we heard over and over again from students, was so far that UNLV did a good job. And unfortunately, as we all know, this is a region of this country that has dealt with mass casualty events time and time again. ABC News' Alex Stone is joining me here with more on the shooting, along with ABC News contributor and former NYPD Chief of Detectives, Bob Boyce. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here with me. So, Alex, let's start here with you. First of all, Alex, just as we learn here that authorities are saying, you know, they said earlier there are victims, and they just updated that victim list. They're saying there is at least 3 right now. They don't know the extent of their injuries. They will keep us updated, and warning us, Alex, that that number could change. So what more do we know about this shooting in these initial phases and how police responded?
Yeah, Kana, unfortunately, that number is going to change. But right now, the official number being 3 victims. We don't know dead or alive. Their conditions are not known. That is the official number that police have just said that they have from their sheriff. But they also caution that the number probably will change, and we believe it will. This began at around 11:45 local time this morning when reports began to come in of shots fired on the UNLV campus. Pretty quickly, there were multiple reports coming in of a shooter making his way through the campus, 2 different locations in the business building and then in a student union. Police went racing in. We know there was a gun battle at some point. He was killed in that gun battle. And now the search is on to make sure that there are no other shooters. I don't believe that there are, but things have definitely calmed down on campus in the last little while. Still a lot going on. You mentioned I-15 is shut down. There is the ground stop at the airport, but they do believe the threat is now over. Past tense is how the sheriff was talking. that they believe that threat is now over.
I don't get the airport.
And so,
shutdown.
Alex, they think that there was only one shooter, and we know that is protocol, standard protocol, that they would look for potentially a second shooter. But we also know that they are looking for more victims as well. And Alex, we heard students talking on campus about, sort of what floor they were on in the building and where they could hear things. So how wide is this investigation as they start looking into this? And Alex, is there any word yet on how this shooter ended up dead?
We don't know, and police say they don't know yet. There was a gun battle that apparently went on, that they engaged the shooter, and then the shooter was dead. So you can assume that the shooter was shot by police, but quite often in these cases, the shooter ends up taking his or her life in that moment when they're pinned down by officers who are heavily armed and running in. It is a very large campus. It's right by the airport. As we talk about the airport, also very close to the Vegas Strip. As all of this is going on. And we know that he was apparently moving through the campus, which is quite large. So there was movement going on. But police went running in, and as they are trained to do, and in something that really was training that came around after Columbine, was that when you go in and you hear gunfire, there is no waiting, that you do not wait any longer. In Columbine, that lesson was learned by waiting outside, waiting for a SWAT team to show up, that children died inside Columbine High School as the two shooters, Klebold and Harris, in that case, were doing their rampage. Ever since that 1999 shooting, the lesson has been that you do not wait, that you race in. There have been some mistakes made from time to time in active shooters where that does not go on, but typically it is like today, from what we know so far in Las Vegas, where they went running in and they ended that threat. The goal is to end that threat, and it appears that's what they did today.
And it's a gun-free zone.
Right, and here we are all these years later. As I was in high school in the Cherry Creek School District when that happened, Alex, and here we are dealing with more violence on yet another school campus. Joining me on the phone right now is the editor-in-chief of the Scarlet and Gray, that is the student newspaper. Alistair Diaz is with us on the phone. Alistair, thank you so much for being here with us. Alistair, it's my understanding that you were actually in that student union building when this happened and heard just a stream of gunshots. Walk us through it.
Yeah, so the Scarlet and Gray office is located on the third floor of the student union. It's all the way in the back. I was in the office with another staff member. I was at my desk. I was just working, and I hear just a stream of sirens come racing down Maryland, which is usually not unusual. But there is a balcony that overlooks the front of the student union, and I hop out there and I just hear like 5 to 6 consecutive rounds go off, just loud bangs. And so I run back and I grab the staff member who's in the office to clear everything out and get her out of there. And as we're coming down the hallway and coming down the stairwell, you can just hear more bangs. It was actually loud enough that it was kind of shaking the walls. But we got out safely through the side. As we're coming down to the student union parking lot in front of the SU, you could just hear 3 more gunshots go off, just loud bangs. It was close enough that it incited us to run across the parking lot and across the street on Maryland. And I think this was before police started going in. There was a police presence, but I didn't see any cops kind of entering the campus. But yeah, the shooting was loud enough that you could verbally hear it throughout the walls of the SU, and even outside, you could hear the exchange of gunfire as well.
Alistair, this sounds terrifying. It sounds like those gunshots were sort of reverberating on the walls of the building that you were trying to escape. And just so I'm clear, you were running out with one other person. Did you see other people trying to flee? And did you know right away that what you were hearing was gunshots?
So interestingly, UNLV is located in East Las Vegas. So there is, sometimes we do have gang violence that does occur. When I stepped outside originally, that was my kind of intuition. I thought it was just like a local, maybe just exchange. There's a gun battle nearby. I didn't know basically off the top that it was gunfire until the second kind of pop happened. And then I kind of just put 2 and 2 together, and I kind of figured that out. Pretty much everyone on the floor of the Scarlet and Gray had evacuated up until this point. I think there was one person who had just finished locking up their office, and they had evacuated just a few seconds ahead of us. I did see a lot of students leaving Paida Plaza, which is this large brick area. It's like a sitting area in front of the student union. and from FDH, which is this administrative building right next door to the student union. And they were all just running out. It was a little bit chaotic. People were confused. I know some students were trying to run back onto campus, but they were told to stay off because no one really knew what was going on. But I think for the most part, everyone just kind of got the gist that it was gunfire. And also because a lot of students were texting like, hey, gunfire is going on, everyone get out. There was a bit of confusion at the moment, but eventually things started to clear up.
And Alistair, as you're talking, we actually just rolled a piece of video where
That's the guy
someone is being
talking?
rolled out on a stretcher. And so in the aftermath of this, as you escape, as you're standing across the street, you know, what else did you see? Did you see police move in? Did you ever see a shooter?
So I didn't see a shooter, and I don't think any of us who had evacuated across the street
Gotta be a
did.
girl.
But what I did see was the team of police officers with guns drawn entering the student union where I'm assuming they took down the shooter. Beforehand, there was a long line of students getting evacuated, and they had their hands up, and they were getting escorted across the street to where we were standing at across the street on Maryland. And yeah, that's all we saw. We saw the police presence. We saw all the police officers out here, the SWAT teams just entering the SU from various sides and various angles. But we never saw a shooter. So that was the thing.
Alistair, it's our understanding that there was a shooting essentially that took place in two different locations on the campus, potentially the business building and the student union. So first of all, is that also your understanding? And second of all, by what you saw and what you heard, is it your estimation here that the shooter was taken down potentially by police inside the student union?
So that is my understanding because from what I know, they were in the business building and then eventually the student union. And it's my understanding, at least, it is very difficult because the police haven't confirmed with us a whole lot of things, and it's difficult to kind of make an assumption from, across the street. But it is to my understanding that they were taken down in there because there was an exchange of gunfire. And yeah, it took place in those two buildings, but it is to my understanding that it happened in the SU.
And Alistair, we've heard a lot of students saying, the university handled this really well, alerted us right away. Is that a sentiment that you share?
That is, yeah. The response was very, very quick. Pretty much by the time I'd come outside the student union, there was already so many cops piled up in front of the entrance of UNLV. And so the response was very quick. This was just within minutes of me knowing about what was going on. I got to commend the university for getting the resources and the boots on the ground here so quickly, not only from UPD, but also Metro and a few of the other police jurisdictions.
This chick sounds like she's reading
I
from
do
a
share that
notebook that
sentiment with
somebody
a lot of my
prepared for her.
peers.
Alistair Diaz, the editor-in-chief of the Scarlet and Gray, which is the student newspaper there at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Alistair, amid all this chaos and confusion and horror, you speaking with us in this manner has been really enlightening, and you're so calm, and I'm so grateful for the time that you have spent with us. And I'm hoping, Alistair, just stay in touch with us throughout the day. And if there's any news that you're able to share with us, will you do that?
Of course, anytime.
Oh my God, yes.
Alistair, thank you. Thank you very much. Be safe and be well.
Of course. Thank you so much.
All right, so I want to bring in Bob Boyce now. So, Bob, first of all, I'd like to just get your reaction there, if you were able to listen to my conversation there with Alistair at all. Essentially, it sounds like, Bob, some of the students at least knew at least almost right away that there was a shooting on campus. But Bob, as you just heard Alistair say, they alluded to the fact that there's sometimes gang violence in that area as well. So how does all of that play into that police response?
Well, it's in an urban environment. We said that time and time again. It's right by the strip. So there's a lot of police officers that aided in the response. Response time, from what I understand, it was quick and an immediate engagement by that. So that helps in that respect. Otherwise, you really can't control your campus sometimes who walks on. So that's another issue. Now, sure, there's gang violence in Las Vegas. There's gang violence in every major city across the country. So we don't know if that played any role yet. We'll see how this determines as we go forward. Have we identified the shooter at some point? We're about 2 hours into this right now, a little over 2 hours. So there's a lot of chaos still has to be tamped down on. The victimization, how many, if there's any fatalities, how many wounds there are. And of course, the identification of the shooter. You can get that sometimes from a serial number on a gun or something on his person. So that has to be determined, the motive. All these things are going in place right now. But you can see right now from the campus that's being shots on that, things are calming down a bit. And now goes the part of putting it all together, finding out what's going on and how close to the strip it was. Did that play any role or no role?
Right. And I think people always associate Las Vegas with the Strip, but there is so much more to Las Vegas and the surrounding area as well. But again, this being in an urban environment, you have to imagine that there will be a lot of video, a lot of security camera video that we will start to see here in the coming hours and days. But Bob, I also want to ask you, when you hear from Alistair and you hear their account of what happened and you hear, sort of shots fired here and then shots fired there, and the fact that this alleged shooter moved from building to building, what do you make of that? Are you able to gain any information potentially on maybe what kind of weapon they even had?
Sure. He heard, I think, about 6 shots, he said. I took that it was perhaps a handgun then. He didn't have a long arm, but that's undetermined right now. Just picking it off. He gave a very detailed account. This is going to hit him later. And that's the whole thing. He lived through this. He acted quickly. He got himself out and someone else with him. So well done all the way around. But maybe that's going to hit him later on, that you were involved in something where you could have been killed. So it sounds like there's a moving shooter. Sometimes the location is revealing as to motive. Because everybody keeps calling about Beam Hall here. We don't know exactly if there's any attachment to his motive on that. That has to be determined as well. Is this a student? Is it a former student? Is it someone walking into a campus? All these things will happen in the hours to come. It's tough to get a hold of this thing immediately. I saw the press conference that, 2 hours into it. Not a lot of information, but some information that the police responded and engaged the shooter immediately. He used those words, the sheriff there, the chief of the Metro Police. So that's something that we have to take right now, that perhaps he took his own life, but sounds like he was the Metro Police terminated this attack, and that's important to understand. We'll know more. The amount of shots he fired, as detailed by Alistair, really tells you a lot. Perhaps it's a handgun and not a large weapon.
All right. Thank you, Bob. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us. I also want to bring in Alex Stone as well, who's been covering this throughout the afternoon. And so, Alex, you also heard this account from Alistair as well. And so I'm curious from your perspective and what you've learned about this incident already, Alex, that we know that this shooter was in 2 buildings, this business building. And then did it surprise you at all, Alex, to hear Alistair say, we saw authorities go into the student union, and at this point, Alistair believes that that is where this shooter was taken down?
That does make sense from what we knew early on, Kana, that initially it appeared the shooting was in the business building and then it moved over to the student union. So that's where the ending of this scenario would go. You heard Bob talking about the stance of what we were seeing there, the crime scene tape that is now up in the video that we were seeing a moment ago. The things have calmed down quite a bit. But the ATF now going to be moving in, help to begin trying to trace that weapon, figure out where did the weapon or weapons, we don't know what this suspect had. Quite often there is more than one weapon. Where they came from, were they ghost guns? Were they serialized guns with a serial number on it? Were they stolen? Were they legally obtained? They have to do all of that. That takes a lot of work. There's not just a computer that you put it into to get the answer back. It's a lot of actual physical work of going and finding the receipts, the carbon copies, to know where a lot of those guns come from. So there's going to be a lot they've got to do. And yeah, what we are getting from law enforcement right now and our sources, they still don't know a lot. And, it seems like, well, they must know more. They don't know a lot. We're still very early into this, and they're trying to get the answers as well.
Right. We are just in the initial stages of this. Again, it is just after 2 o'clock here on the West Coast, and authorities responded here, around after 11 o'clock. And so this is just now starting to unfold. It's our understanding that there are some people that are at hospitals that are in the area as well. And again, this is a very urban campus. And so, Bob, I'd like to bring that back to you as we talk about the many incidents that we have seen in this country in terms of gun violence, but specifically in Las Vegas. I recently even visited a trauma center there, and they talk a lot about now how prepared they are for events like this, and not just, on the hospital side, but on the law enforcement side as well, Bob.
Yeah, so I think Stephen Paddock's shooting so many years ago really changed the threat level. So they've trained for this. They respond quickly, and this is what happened here. It looks like an immediate response, an immediate facing off with the shooter. So that's what we're looking at now. We should have this, in very, very short amount of time. The victims and their statements, that's going to come a long time. Identifying that shooter, that'll really turn a corner for us to see what happened here, what's going on. I think this was aided because it's in an urban environment. You bring more resources to the location. You bring all the federal units as well. They have data systems that aid in the investigation. That's really a big plus on this as you go forward.
All right, Bob Boyce and Alex Stone, thank you so much for your time. This is a story we will continue to follow here on ABC News Live. We'll be checking back in with Bob and Alex as well. And again, authorities there in Las Vegas saying that there is no threat at this time. They're also saying that there are 3 victims, but they add it is an unknown extent of injuries, and they say that that number could change. We are expecting an update from law enforcement in the coming hours as well, and we will bring you all of that. Make sure to stay here on ABC News Live.
The holidays on Dale's farm weren't very festive until he saved big on a Bluetooth speaker with Amazon's last-minute deals. And now,
Mamacita, ¿dónde está Santa
that llama is part dancer, part prancer.
¿Dónde está
Shop last-minute deals now at Amazon.
And the toys that he will leave.
What even is this? Don't touch my things, gross. Janice, when you bundle your home or renters with your auto, Progressive provides 24/7 protection for almost everything you own. But you really need my weighted hoop. It's for my snatched waist. It's my dog chaise lounger. Foot treadmill. That's my Tuesday chalice. Purse that says purse. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy chair. What even is this? Don't touch my things, gross. Janice, when you bundle your home or renters with your auto, Progressive provides 24/7 protection for almost everything you own. But you really need my weighted hoop. It's for my snatched waist. It's my dog chaise lounger. Foot treadmill. That's my Tuesday chalice. Purse that says purse. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. I can't live without oxygen. Solid gold coffee machine. Lake making kit. Really? Can Progressive cover that too? Yes, but... Hi, it's Janice. I'll take 5. Is my voice on TV right now?
At TJ Maxx, you can go above and beyond and stay
Okay,
under
guys,
budget.
so you get rid of this. If I can get rid of it. Kill this audio on my end. All right, guys. As you've seen, and I apologize that there's not much more that I know. I don't know what's going on any more than these clowns do. They're guessing. I'm trying not to guess right now, but obviously what we see is we have people who are appearing to sensationalize something. I'm not saying nothing happened. What I'm saying is they're drawing out this as long as they can to continue to get views. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cut my live stream short because I feel like, honestly, like we said a while ago, I got more information reading the freaking comments from you guys. I mean, than anything that I read or watched from these guys. And the whole time I was on, I had my screen off because I'm looking at my iPad, scrolling through news, trying to see if somebody knows anything. Nobody knows anything. What do we get out of this? Potential active shooter supposedly dead, possibly 3 victims. We don't know to the extent of what the damage to those victims are. We don't know if any are dead. We don't know if any are seriously wounded. We do know that none of them have been brought to the hospital. None of the 3 victims have been brought to the hospital. So either they're stone cold dead or they're not bad enough to even go to the hospital. This is one of the worst forms of reporting. I understand that journalists suck these days and they don't journal anymore, if you want to call it that. But this was pathetic. I'll probably put a video out tomorrow once we maybe know something. Will we know anything by tomorrow? I do know a couple of things. There was an assault weapons ban bill that was introduced in the Senate today. It failed. One of you guys made a very good point. Was the shooting supposed to take place before or after the vote? Apparently it took place after the vote. Maybe their timing was off. That's a joke, right? I do know this also. UNLV is a gun-free school zone, which means it is a kill zone. So a lot of these, you heard the soy boy a while ago talk about how he was scared. It's debatable that that was a boy. This is going to happen more and more on these campuses, where the bigger story is going to be how many therapists we have to bring on board to coddle these candy asses that we have, because they all have PTSD. They have PTSD because they're all scared, because none of them can protect themselves. None of them can. Not only are they not able to protect themselves, they're not allowed to protect themselves because they're in a freaking gun-free zone. At some point, if somebody were armed on these campuses, when are we going to learn this? That we wouldn't be waiting for law enforcement to show up, because somebody would already be on site to defend people and take out these active shooters. But no, we have to wait until law enforcement shows up. We saw what that got us in Uvalde, right? So here we go. Again, the things that we do know, and I'm going to leave it at this. We know this was a gun-free zone. We know today is Wednesday. We know 3 people allegedly were shot. We do not know the extent of what the injuries are. And we do know that the, quote, shooter is deceased. We don't know if he shot himself or if law enforcement shot him. The other thing that we do know, and I find this super suspect, 2 things. 1, they shut down the airport. And 2, all the campuses in Nevada are closed. When have you guys ever seen that happen before? That is crazy. So we have 3 people injured that we know of. We don't even know if anybody's dead or seriously wounded, but we shut every university in Nevada down and we close the airport. Close the airport. They closed the airport. That does not make sense to me. That does not make sense to me. I'm going to leave it at that, guys. If y'all want to go back into the comments section after we shut this down, the live video will be out there if you want to continue to talk about it. I wish we still had, quote, chat rooms without me having to leave a live stream like this open, because obviously a lot of times when I leave a live stream open so that the chat room stays open, people get mad and say, oh, they're not talking about anything. So I'm going to have to shut this down just for that reason. But I mean, if you guys hear anything, I'd love to know what you know, because I know nothing. I mean, I know so little right now that I'm feeling embarrassed that we're even talking about this, because we don't have enough information to even determine what took place. Other than geography at this point, where. All right, guys, y'all have a good evening. You hear something, you can always shoot me an email at paul@legallyarmedamerica.com. Thanks, guys. I appreciate the time you guys spend on here. And I really appreciate the information, because, again, I got more from you guys in the chat section than I did on this stupid live stream from this news agency over there in Las Vegas. You guys have a good evening.